Buongiorno and welcome to another out of spec review. This adorable thing behind me is the new Fiat 500e. All new, fresh off the boat from Torino, Italy. Not everyone knows where their cars are made, but this one's very loud about the fact it's from Torino. In case you couldn't tell, this is the red version, and it's been about 5 years since we've had Fiat 500s here in the States. They're back with a vengeance. I'm so glad. I knew they'd be back. And there's a few other things I also hope they bring back. There's lots to unpack, so let's get right into my review of the electric Cinquecento, the new 500e. So an obvious place to start is the styling. This is a Fiat, this is from Italy. They seem to love their design, and that's why I love them. This thing is adorable. I actually get a lot of people coming up to talk to me. It's not quite like the Cybertruck, but a lot of people have come up and they're like, wait, is this thing here? Can you buy this? Is this an American car? And yes, believe it or not, I think, Fiat disappeared from the US originally because their sales were just so far down. I mean, a lot of people bought them when they first arrived here, like, I don't know, 10, almost 15 years ago. But they were discontinued in 2019 because, yeah, sales numbers not quite there. Now, this is obviously a niche market. There's a niche type of person that wants this, but I think there's more closet small car enthusiasts than we realized. And I hope these actually sell. This design is incredible. Obviously, very, very typical Fiat 500. And many people may not realize this is an all new car. Like, I don't even know if you could call it mid-cycle refresh. I mean, there's a whole new architecture underneath it, the STLA City platform, which is new from Stellantis. And I'm hoping that brings other cars also on this platform. There is an actual skateboard battery underneath it, whereas the old 500e was kind of a battery just added into an existing combustion car architecture. So 42 kilowatt hour skateboard platform battery. You do have a front permanent magnet motor making about 87 kilowatts, which is 116-ish horsepower, 168 pound-feet of torque, I want to say. Maybe, yeah, it's not great. Not a torque beast, not a monster, but this is maybe the only electric car for sale in the States under 3,000 pounds weight, which is crazy. It's like 2,900 something, which is about the same weight as the old 500e, but with a much bigger battery. That one had 24 kilowatt hours. This one has 42 kilowatt hours. Now that's gross. Usable is about 38 kilowatt hours, but still, that is what contributes to this getting a much better range than the outgoing model. This one gets claimed 150 miles or so, maybe stretched a little further in Sherpa mode. We'll talk about the driving modes later, but yes, definitely a much more capable city car than the old 500e, which was already, honestly, I think a pretty good city car. But again, it's distinctly a 500e. You have these really cool headlights. They're actually kind of a 3D effect that looks like it just goes back into there, which it does. And then these were kind of fog lights on the old 500. I actually used to have a 500, so I have a special place in my heart for these things. These are really just accent lighting. There's no real purpose for them other than added accent lighting, which adds, I guess, visibility. People can see you a tiny bit better. I don't know. All the lights on a small car really do help. Side markers in the US here, in the Euro version, these are side markers, but in the US, we just have a little Italian flag looking thing, which is a cool little Easter egg. There's a lot of Easter eggs on this thing. The 500 fascia is really cool. You have the classic 500 logo here, which this one's actually a bit 3D, which is cool. The upper trims actually get some ADAS. This one has like no ADAS to speak of. So the upper trims have adaptive cruise control and stuff, which means this is replaced with a radar. But on this base version here, this red edition, it's just a cool logo. A little bit of cooling down here. You can see there's actually a bit of a radiator in there for added cooling. We'll open the frunk in a second here. These are the wheels, 17-inch. It is funny when you're speccing these on the website because you have a choice of tire, either summer tires or all seasons tire. This is equipped with the all season. I don't know why you'd really need summer performance tires, but hey, if you really want to try to eke every single bit out of this, it is fun, which you'll see in the driving section. But there's actually two upper trims. You can go from the base model two directions, either inspired by music, which is only comes in tuxedo black and has a nicer sound system, JBL, and actually some help with Andrea Bocelli for designing the sound experience. And then there's also the Inspired by Beauty, the other direction, which is only available in rose gold with a beige interior and just fancier, I guess. Both of those equally set you apart about $3,500 extra. So if you want that, great. I think it's probably worth it because heated seats, adaptive cruise, some basic things would be very nice in this car. So I would probably spring for a nicer trim. But just the base model here in red is really cool. Now, not only do you get to choose between tire type, but if you get this base model, you can also pick a color, red or white with red accents or black with red accents. All have to have red accents, of course. But these tires are 205 45 17s. These are 17-inch wheels they are donned on, and those wheels actually, they kind of, they're supposed to like glisten in the sunlight because it's a bunch of little machined edges amidst a black wheel. It does actually work. It does kind of glisten. We also have disc brakes up front, but actually drum brakes in the rear, which I think is fine. I mean, there's not a lot of stopping power needed with this thing, but it is an interesting engineering decision for sure. Here they are electronic door handles, which is awesome. And yeah, we'll get to the interior in a second. Fiat 500e right here. This little E logo is nice. And a charge port instead of a gas like before. It is charging, and unlike the old 500e, this has DC fast charging, which is awesome. It will charge at a peak of 85 kilowatts on DC fast charging, which is not fast, but this is a small battery. So it's still about up to charges to 80% in about 35 minutes as they claim. I think that's 0 to 80, by the way, not a 10 to 80 charging time, but we're gonna do a whole charging test on this car as well as a range test and such. So we'll see how accurate that is, but also level 2 and level 1 charging. Fun fact, I've actually been level 1 charging this while I have it because the included charger is only a level 1 charger. You can, when you buy this, either choose a level 2 charger like wall box situation to go home with you, or charging credits for charging out and about, which could be used for, I guess, level 2 or DC fast charging, which is pretty neat. Around back here, this is like a bit more of the classic Fiat badge, the very narrow, tall font. Really cool that it's red on red. I think that's a nice touch, very subtle. And the 500e logo there with the blue kind of surrounds. And then, yes, made in Torino. That's one way to tell you it's made in Torino. This is actually the Torino skyline, sort of. I mean, it's missing a bunch of things, but that's the famous tower in Torino. And that is where this car has come from. Got a nice little spoiler right here. But yeah, no like silver chrome accents really like the outgoing model had. My old Fiat 500 was actually the 1957 edition that they made in 2015. It was super cool, super retro. And I think this one does actually capture some of the nice retro vibes really well. Now let's take a look on the inside. Again, the electronic door release, just like a lot of other modern cars, they are taking a step into the modern era with this. But if you're curious, here's the inside way to open it, and there's the actual manual door release override. Now, you know, if you're in a Tesla and use the manual door release, the screen's like, whoa, what are you doing? You might damage the door surrounds because of the frameless doors and everything. These are framed doors, so actually using the manual release shouldn't be hard on it at all. So if that's your preferred method, all power to you. But getting in here, take a step in. Yes, decently spacious, especially here in the front. Lots of space. Actually, the seating position was lowered just a little bit from the outgoing Fiats, which is nice. The back seats, yeah, they're there, but it's really cool. You see the 500 red thing here. Now, red, if you were unaware, is actually a foundation founded by Bono and someone else to fight like AIDS, malaria, tuberculosis. So actually a part of the proceeds of this car, the red version, does go to that cause. If you've heard of or seen red iPhones, those are also called product red, where red is in parentheses. Those also go for that same thing. So I guess it's kind of cool. I mean, a little kind of kickback to part of the world that needs some help. That's cool. I can get on board with that. But yeah, red is definitely everywhere. The red dash is kind of cool. I mean, a little bit cheesy, cheap feeling, but also nicely done, looks good. Manual vents, huge fan. Manual AC controls, huge fan. They are kind of cheap looking you know, piano black plastic buttons. Not the biggest fan of that. Also a couple random buttons down here. The volume control is down here when I would have expected it maybe up there, but maybe not. Electronic parking brake release, and then the E mode button, so you can control your 3 driving modes: normal, range, and Sherpa. Right here is a wireless charging pad with what is the, let's see if the camera can see it, the cityscape of Torino, the landscape looking thing. Yeah, another little effect for that. And on that note, there's also one in the door here, made in Torino. Both doors have a symbol or a little drawing of the original Fiat 500, the Cinquecento, and also says made in Torino. So they're very proud of the fact that this is an Italian car with lots of Italian heritage. Typical wiper controls back here. I do like them decently. And the steering wheel also is pretty cool. A 2-spoke steering wheel, but I actually kind of like that here. Lots of good space for your hands when you're not touching it. Really feels premium. This is like the most premium feeling thing of this car is the steering wheel. Everything else is a lot of injection molded plastic, and I don't know, it's okay. It's really not bad. There's a non-auto dimming mirror. Like, this is definitely feeling base model. And although these seats are cloth, they are pretty comfortable, and they're more interesting than some cloth seats. I mean, look, this just says Fiat over and over and over again. It's kind of cool. And yeah, the back seat does have a cup holder and a little bit of a 500 badge in the middle there. And then there's also USB-A port there. This center section actually holds my huge water bottle decently, actually really well. And definitely some useful storage, USB-A, another USB-C here. So I guess one USB-C, 2 USB-A ports. And I guess this is a, yeah, cigarette lighter situation there. So yeah, this thing actually slides back and then can open up for a bit more storage, which is nice. And the glove box is massive. I've got GoPros. I could keep all my cameras in there actually. So definitely nice to have some storage optimization, especially in such a small car. Now, this wireless charger is about useless, just like a lot of other cars. It keeps your phone basically too warm to actually charge, which is silly, but hey, I guess it's a decent place to sit and leave your phone. And then a couple more buttons down here for, I guess, some lighting situations. Yeah. Yeah, very basic and simple. The outgoing Fiat did have a screen here, but it wasn't great. This is an improved screen. This is also an improved screen, 10.25 inch with Uconnect 5, maybe it is. I can't remember, but actually pretty nice. I don't think the phone is really showing it super well. There we go. But CarPlay actually looks pretty good. Nice resolution. I would probably just leave it on CarPlay. I think a lot of people would, but definitely one of the better CarPlay situations. Home shows you the power screen, which in live time shows you the kilowatt of power your motor is using, but also the regen, which is pretty awesome. And it shows right now I'm using a little bit of climate control. And let's see, battery level shows you the time it would take to charge to full on all the different types of chargers. Now, a silly thing, I guess, I don't know, I think it's kind of silly. If you go to, actually you can adjust all these widgets, which is cool. But if I go to the actual battery section, I guess you have to click that one little spot. Yes, you can set charging schedules. You can see power flow. It's not the most responsive screen. And there's AC charging level, but you cannot set a charge limit. This thing will just charge to 100%. What you can do is adjust what I think is the amperage, and it doesn't tell you what those are. It's just low or high. And it just says, oh, if you're having issues during charging, select a lower level, which is why I'm thinking it's going to request lower amps, and then it will take longer to charge it. So that's kind of an interesting, I don't even want to call it a solution. That's just, I guess it could be a solution. If your house isn't rated for high enough, then you might want to back that off a little bit. But I don't know. I don't know why there's no way to set a charging limit. At least I can't find one. Let me know if I'm wrong, but I've looked pretty extensively in here and there's just not many options for that. Furthermore, if you go to, this screen and you want to look at your trips, yeah, it's done in MPGe. There's no miles per kilowatt hour, so you can't actually tell what your efficiency is. Just a few weird quirks in here. Now, this is a relatively modern system. I'd love to see them do some updates, which would maybe give you more functionality, and maybe some of the readouts we'd love to see. Because even inside here, all the apps, there's just not a lot. Now, software updates, that seems to indicate maybe over-the-air functionality, which would be awesome. But yeah, not much else in here. That was already the electric vehicle section. You can also set shortcuts up here. A lot of cool functionality and like customization, which I really like. But the settings, yeah, everything's a little bit limited. Park view, backup camera, yeah. So no 360 camera, just a backup camera. Even the tire trims don't have a 360 camera, which is a bit of a bummer. I mean, why do you really need that in a tiny car? But I personally am a fan. But yeah, a lot of different settings in here. Bluetooth works fine. It is wireless CarPlay, but I'm sure you can use the wired version as well. And it does work pretty well, like I said. Just not like super responsive. You can tell it's a little bit laggy. It just isn't like insanely responsive. So not leading edge in any way. And the screen is okay brightness wise. It's also not, I'm going to say, bright enough. Inside this display, you also have a few different options. You can see your trip information. Driving assist is hilarious because in this car you have nothing but cruise control. Not even adaptive. It's just cruise control. So I don't know why there's a screen for literally nothing. I guess it's so they can reuse the same software across all the models, because the upper cars do have cruise control. In fact, I think they have lane centering, which is cool. I'd love to try those out. Vehicle info, seeing like tire pressure, service intervals. Of course, I've been listening to some Italian music to get in the mood. And the map screen view up here is great. It is slow-ish to first load, but there we go, finally loaded. And it's decent. It's fine. The random tutorial stuff, slideshow, which is like a way to go see all the different things this car can do. Pay attention to the road while driving. Yeah, it just shows you every single thing about the car. It's almost like, yeah, E mode. Talk about the different driving modes, normal, range, Sherpa. Oh, and talks about one pedal driving and Sherpa cuts. Yeah, we'll talk about that in the driving section, but it's, I don't know, quirky car, which is fine. I kind of like it. I think this is one of the more personable, got more personality than a lot of other cars is what I'm trying to say. Lock button here. There's your turn signal sound, or also the flashers here. But yeah, that's quick high-level view of what the software does, the experience. Honestly, it's kind of one of those like set it and forget it. I would probably just leave this in this mode, or maybe in the map mode. I don't know, just leave CarPlay up here. Although it's kind of fun to see what the motor's doing in real time as far as using and returning some energy. What's interesting is this car, like I said, is rated at 87 kilowatts of power, so about 115 horsepower or so. But if you're flooring it, this motor can actually go to 100 kilowatts. I've seen 100. And even region, I've seen about 90. So maybe peak power is a bit higher. I don't know how long it lets you stay at peak. So maybe it's like a nominal rating at 87 kilowatts. I guess that would make sense. But yeah, this thing is pretty sweet. I don't know. What do you think of the interior? Do you think it's too dumbed down, too minimalist, especially given the almost $35,000 price tag? Or do you feel like this is on par? Because it is on par with the old Fiat 500, just I think better in pretty much every way. Ugh. Let's actually see what's under the front. I know there's no front trunk. There's no frunk in this car, which is a little disappointing, but it is cool. It's got the, hydraulic stuff. And there's what you're looking at. There's motor down here and a lot of high voltage cabling, your typical fluids. The battery, low volt or 12 volt battery, everything's easily accessible, I guess. It does seem like there's a little bit of extra space. They could have at least threw in a small frunk, which I don't really know if people care that much, but I don't know. Are you super hardcore into frunks? Let us know. I don't think it's a huge miss. The back has some decent storage. We'll check that out, but I don't know. It's interesting because when the Fiat 500 first came out, the Cinquecento back in like 1957, it was actually rear engine, rear wheel drive. Now we have, we had front engine, front wheel drive. Now it's a battery, but they still decide to keep it front wheel drive. I would love to see maybe eventually like a next generation 500 with rear motor, even if the battery is like a little bit more front. I don't know. If we can figure out motor packaging, to not impede on the rear space. That would be nice, but here we go. Rear trunk, definitely not big, but have you seen the size of this car? It's decent for the car. Bigger than my Miata trunk, which I know isn't saying much, but I think it's about 7.5 cubic feet. There's even a little tiny bit of storage underneath here. And yeah, not much, just like a fix-a-flat situation. But yeah, it's decent. Although I would give up a little bit of trunk space for a subwoofer. I would love to test out the Inspired by Music version because I bet that has a bomb sound system. My Fiat 500 back in the day with the Beats system had a really good stereo. So they fold that flat, which is, yeah, not flat, but definitely like a lot more storage space in here. I do think the Mini, the electric Mini, does have an edge on storage capacity. But that, you know, weighs a tiny bit more. Also has a bit more power, I think. I don't know. We're going to do a whole Mini comparison with this, so go check out Out of Spec Guide because that's where the guys are going to throw that video. But yeah, I am definitely, I think, Team Fiat. It's just such a unique freaking car. Size-wise, it is about 2 inches longer than the old Fiat, about 2 inches wider, and I think an inch longer wheelbase, something like that. The wheelbase is like 94 inches. The entire length of the car is 143 inches, which is actually the exact wheelbase of a Cybertruck. So this car would fit exactly within the wheelbase of a Cybertruck. Fun fact. So I think Kyle described the interior as plastic but pleasant, and I'd have to fully agree with that. That's pretty much on par with how I feel. It's not really premium. I'd love to try out the higher end Fiat 500s, the Inspired by Beauty or the Inspired by Music, because I think those would actually fix a lot of issues. Even this, like, I mean, today it's actually warm out. I might lose the hoodie, although it matches. But yesterday it was snowing, and I really wanted to have heated seats, heated steering wheel, just a few things that would have been nice. My Fiat back in 2015 had that, and yeah, I guess not included with this one, but you step it up to the upper trims, like I said, and you do get leather interior, or fake leather, whatever, heated seats. Still no heated steering wheel, I don't think, and I think only the Inspired by Music gets the nicer sound system, the JBL. This sound system, not great, just not bad, just not great. Just feels very lackadaisical, lackluster, like just missing a lot. So I guess, yeah, they no longer have their partnership with Beats like they did back in the day. The sound system in my first Fiat 500 was actually really solid. So this one needs some work, and I wish you could have that as an option. Like, I wish there was some other options you could have, like maybe add leather or add, I don't know. There's, like I said, there's no options. You just pick a color, pick a trim, pick a tire type, and call it a day. We've talked enough about how this thing looks. Let's just take it for a drive. First of all, the steering wheel is manual, but it does telescope, which I don't think my Fiat 500 before had that option, which is awesome. All manual seats, so just good luck getting your position exactly right, but it's totally doable. Let's go. These tire tracks around here, yeah, that wasn't me. This thing does not have the power for that. But easing our way out of the parking lot here, it does drive nicely. It's just, I don't know, like it's hard for me to picture a better, like, true city car. Sure, the Mini I think is up there, and it really maybe comes down to personal preference at that point, but just low speed stuff, this thing seems pretty good. And the one pedal driving calibration, honestly, is decent. Not the best in the world at all, but I'm just glad it has one pedal driving. Now we can talk about drive modes here, and what's interesting is the actual range mode, which is what I'm in now, is really the way to do one pedal driving. I don't know why anyone would not drive in range mode. Normal mode, I don't know, might give you more power, but I think range mode still gives you all the power. And that third drive mode we saw earlier is called Sherpa, and that's kind of just hilarious. It basically means you can go much further. It'll lock your speed to under 50 miles an hour, although you can probably override that with a kickdown switch. And so speed limited to 50 miles an hour, and then also it just immediately turns off climate control. It's hilarious. So I guess if you really are trying to eke miles out of this thing, Sherpa mode is there for you. And if you're around town and it's nice weather out, sure, just throw it in Sherpa mode and call it a day. But I'm actually going to flip a UE right here, which is very easy given the actual crazy tight turning radius of this car. That's just Fiat things. And we'll get right over here so I can show you its true capabilities, just how fast this thing goes. All right, so we have a decent straight right here, and let's launch. Now you probably haven't noticed, but I have actually left the starting line. So a quick 0 to 50 miles an hour spurt right there, and yeah, not fast. So Fiat officially states 0 to 60 is 8.5 seconds, but they really want you to hone in on that 0 to 30 number, which is 3.1 seconds, which is decent, honestly. Like, it could be worse, I guess. And if you're a city car, also, like, how often are you gonna go to 60 miles an hour? Now, if you really care, the actual speed max, like Vmax for this car is 94 miles an hour, but that's what they state. I've actually never seen 94. I had it pegged at 93 for a while, allegedly. So because it's getting warm out, I'm not going to do Sherpa mode because I really need that air conditioning. But yeah, just sending it out on the street here. And okay, so not fast, but also fine. And I think we all get this like obsession over straight line speed. I think, you know, Tesla has somewhat instilled that in us. That is the party trick of EVs. And this is not what you would consider quick, honestly. Now, decently quick. Like, it still holds its own against most, I'd say, normal commuter cars. And I think that's where they want this to sit. They don't care about power. Now, that being said, Europe has the Abarth version, which is like 150 horsepower maybe, which is still not a big number, but for the size of this car, still kind of fun. Like, this is fun even in and of itself. And so that would just be, you know, icing on the cake. Also, we have no glass roof, no cabrio version. I mean, those were like big perks to me back in the day when we had the other gas Fiats here. I don't think we ever had the 500e as a cabrio, or I don't even know if that had a glass like sunroof thing. But if they had those, I just feel like that would add a lot more appeal to this car, which already needs all the help it can get, because this car is entering a society where all we want is SUVs. I intentionally take every car on this extremely bumpy road in my neighborhood just to see how the suspension is damped. And that's also what I would say is decent. Like, obviously, this is not a Mercedes or Rolls Royce or anything like that, but it rides comparably with other, honestly, most cars that have just a normal, decent spring damp suspension, especially when it's not adaptive. Obviously, this is not adaptive, but I'm riding, I don't know, similar to the Model Y in front of me, who's hitting all the same bumps as well. And as far as nimbleness, I mean, that's where this car really does excel. Once again, an EV with under 3,000 pounds is crazy. Right now, we're passing this Model Y, giving it full beans, hitting out 95 kilowatts. Oh, yeah, the bumps are definitely exaggerated at that speed, but this holds its own as far as nimbleness, and I think that's kind of the new party trick for this car. All the other EVs are like, oh, we can do speed in the straight line. This one definitely just makes you feel like light and sprightly, and I think it's engaging and fun to drive, even though it's front wheel drive, even though it's got low horsepower. I mean, if you're talking under 100 kilowatts, that's almost no cars actually have that power, but this is just, yeah, kind of ridiculous. Turning traction control off, there is a dedicated button to turn off traction control, but I don't think it's actually turning off like all the nannies. Like, it still comes back in and helps me out, which is a little bit annoying, but hey, I guess it keeps you a little bit safer. Like, maybe it's keeping on DSC, it's just like ESC is off. Let's see. Yeah, just saying ESC. Yep, it's still cutting in a little bit of traction control there, but we were spinning tires right there. And this, if you still have enough power to spin tires, like, honestly, it's totally fine. What's interesting is Sherpa mode, like I said, reduces the top speed to 50, but also limits acceleration. I think it limits it to about 57 kilowatts. So what I can actually do is I will turn in here and try out Sherpa mode. Now, the moment I hit Sherpa mode, AC goes off. Now, I can still override that, turn back on AC, and it'll just say, hey, cabin conditioning is on, range may be limited. Which, climate control is only using 0 to 1 kilowatt, like somewhere between that range right now. So, honestly, I don't know how much extra climate is going to help you out, but hey, it's an option. So right here, I will do a quick acceleration with Sherpa mode and just see how it works. It's Pretty slow. But yep, limits it to, oh, now it says 66 kilowatts. See, that's what I'm wondering of the EV instant consumption. Those must be just peak numbers. And what they're giving you with Sherpa mode is a nominal of 57 kilowatts. And same with the full-on battery, or same with the full motor, like nominal 87 kilowatts, whereas it can actually peak at a little bit of a percentage higher, like, I don't know, roughly 10% more or something like that. So that's my theory. But man, this thing, even Sherpa mode right now, we still have traction control off. And there is a kickdown switch, driver override. It still keeps you in Sherpa mode though, so it doesn't like override you and throw you back into normal mode. So now when I floor it again, it limits me back to 50 miles an hour. Now I'm going downhill, still floored, so it is letting me creep over to 51, 52. And then the steering took me back over 53, 54. So it is letting you creep over the 50 mile an hour speed limit in Sherpa mode. But for reference, we are at 50% state of charge right now. It thinks we can do 67 miles. So that would claim like 125 miles on a full charge, which is, or 135 miles. Yeah. So that's, I don't know, probably pretty accurate. I bet most people would get 125 to 140 miles on a charge. Just depends how you drive. But if you really do milk it for all it's worth and keep those low city speeds, I bet this would do that. Now, I have also had this on the highway plenty of times. I'm going to throw us out of Sherpa mode because it's just hard to keep up with traffic. And I was able to keep up fine even on the highway. It even had some passing power at like 65. So it's not like this is a city-only car with a top speed of like city speeds. We've seen a lot of those, especially with some of the compliance cars like the iMeave. I don't think that can go very fast. Some of those are just like really limited, but this one can handle anything. I just don't know how well it'll do for long distance. Now, tomorrow, as of when I'm recording this, is when I think Max or Ryan are going to test the 70 mile an hour constant speed. Can't wait to see what it does with that. I'm going to guess maybe 110 miles. Like, it's not going to go that far. It is not the most aerodynamic thing, but at least it is smooth and curvaceous, which might help a little bit. The tires, maybe sometimes I missed a little bit more sidewall that the older, smaller wheels had with a little bit thicker sidewall, but this is fine. These are the exact same tire sizing that's on, like, for say, the Miata. 205, 45 is the exact same that the new Miata comes on. Actually, even Miata's dating back to 2006, so it's a very common tire size, very cheap tires. So, you know, sometimes cars go bigger on the wheel, and which means you got to have more expensive tires. Not really the case with this. Still affordable tires. But yeah, the ride is okay. I do wish some of the noise was better, but then again, it is a eco-minded car. Like I said, all this plastic in here, I'm only going to assume there's not much as far as sound deadening in the door or anything like that. So you do have some wind noise, especially at high speeds. Yeah, and being, you know, an electric car, you're going to hear the wind and tire noise a lot more than a combustion one. My Fiat 500 that I used to have was combustion. It only had 101 horsepower, and it was notably slower than this. This, yeah, just, it rips. Like, I feel like I can say that. Kyle says his Twizy rips, so losing a little traction there. Like, it can still have fun, which is just hilarious. I think there's so much personality with the looks of this car, but even how it drives, I think, has personality. Even if I throw traction control on, let's just see here. Oh yeah, I can smell the rubber too. That's so funny. Even traction control on still lets you have, I think, enough fun. That's just like the spirit of this car. It's the spirit of fun. That's why Fiat's having fun with the naming conventions, the colors, just the things they're focusing on. They're throwing this car into like influencers' hands, and they're trying to do partnerships with famous people. And I don't know, I think they're trying to sell it as a lifestyle ethos mentality, and I am kind of here for it. I think there's too many relatively boring EVs out there, and sure, they do the job, but this one just has that little bit of fun that I think a lot of other cars are kind of missing out on. Now, I know not everyone's looking for fun. To some people, to many people, this is their dishwasher. This is their appliance. And that's their focus. What can get me from A to B and the most efficient way possible, or maybe they like certain things. Like even people who aren't car people still have opinions on what they want to drive. This could be for those people as well, but if you are looking for a little bit of an engaging, interesting, personable drive, that's where I think this driving experience steps in. Kyle drove this car over in Europe, loved it. I'm personally loving it here, even on the US roads, which are, you know, notoriously made for more bigger SUVs, and like over in Europe, this like fit right in. Whereas over here, I'm getting a lot of looks from people who are like, is that your toy? Is that your kid's car? Maybe it could be, but I just love this thing. It's to the point where I'm like looking for excuses to take it out. Like the other day, I didn't need anything for the grocery store, but I was like, you know what? I'll just do a little jaunt down the street to the King Soopers and see what I can find, what's on their, you know, what's on their shelves. Because it's just fun and it's very easy and it's very effortless. Parking this is easy, driving this is easy, getting in and out is easy. I mean, it's not like, you know, I have a tiny sports car, a Miata, and that's a little harder to get in and out, especially for some people. This is just extremely approachable. Now the price, I don't know how I feel about that. $32,500 is basically the entry price. Now add on, you know, mandatory fees, so you're looking at $34,000. If you add the other premium trims, you're looking at closer to like 37, something like that, 36, 37. That's not cheap. I mean, it is kind of, but like when you look at the landscape of entry-level EVs, which is constantly growing, or even used EVs. I mean, if you start looking at used Model 3s, for example, they are cheaper than this all day and easily considered twice the car. But also half the personality, I don't know. It's just, they're less interesting to me. Sure, they objectively drive a lot better. They have a lot more space and stuff, but I think around town, this really will do the trick for most people. So I guess I'll be keeping an eye on this market. What will used Fiat 500es go for in a few years? But if you can afford a new one, I don't think you're going to be let down. It's fun, it's engaging, it's interesting, all those things that I personally care about, and I think other people might care about as well. I loved the original 500e. I thought it was so awesome, and I've even thought about buying one a few times, but the range was just limited enough to where in a city such as Denver, I don't think it would really hold up. It didn't have any sort of DC fast charging, and the range on a good day was like 85 miles. This one, rated for 150 miles, has DC fast charging. It plugs right into a Tesla supercharger with Magic Dock. Now it's a lot more effortless, I think, to own one of these. The original 500e, I still would have made it work. I bet I could have been fine, but this just feels more effortless. Now that it has DC fast charging, you can take it kind of anywhere. 150 mile range is totally usable, even in a place like Denver with sort of a sprawling metropolis. And charging is honestly, I'm gonna say decent. Again, we're gonna have a whole charging video on this most likely, and 10% challenge, range challenge. Like, we're gonna do all of the testing on this car, but charging on a DC fast charger, it just works. Most any chargers, I'm sure, would be just fine, and you'll actually get full power from like any charger, even a ChargePoint CPE 250. Whereas, you know, some other cars, if you go to a ChargePoint or something, you're like, oh, I'm not getting full beans, and it's just like disappointing a little bit. Whereas this one just takes more advantage of all of those. Even a level 2 charger is percentage-wise giving you more than it would in most other EVs, because this battery is just so small. I mean, 38 kilowatt hours usable is not much, but honestly, I think it would work for most people. The average US commute is supposedly, oh, look at this turning radius, it's fantastic. The average US commute is like 30 miles per day. So the fact that everyone's obsessing over this like 300 plus mile range EV, I get it. If it's like your only car, you want to road trip things, like sure. But for so many people, this would do the trick. And I kind of am looking for excuses for it to do the trick for me. So there you have it, the new Fiat 500e. I think it's enough car for a lot of people. There's still gonna be people that say it's just not enough, and that's fine, they don't have to buy it, but I think personally, I would kind of love one. Now, I would definitely spring for one of the upper trims. Like I said, it just has a lot more features. I think most people, including myself, would care to have, such as the adaptive cruise control, like lane centering, a better sound system, heated seats, just a lot of things that I would like in any car that I own. As a first entrance back to the US, I think they kind of nailed it out of the park. I do hope some other things come to terms, such as like an NACS port. Let's just see a native NACS port on this thing. Maybe a little bit better charging. We can always wish for a little bit better. Range, I don't know, unless they fit a bigger battery, which who knows if they really would, because it's a small car, they're trying to keep the weight down, and it might mess up how it drives. I don't know. It would be interesting to pack more batteries in this thing for the people who really do have the range anxiety, but this thing charges fine as it is. It has enough range as it is for a lot of people's city car. Like, sure, maybe it's not your main car, maybe it's your second car, or even a third car. I don't know, maybe you have your big truck for your truck things. This thing, I would love to have in my garage. And like I said, I really wish they would bring the Cabrio or the Abarth over to the US, because that, like, think of small, fun, fast, electric convertible. That just sounds amazing to me. And that's the kind of Fiat I would personally spec. So come on, Fiat, just bring it over here. It's already a niche enough market. Volkswagen is bringing the ID.7 over here because they want a small piece of that, like 12 whatever % market share of the sedan market. Fine. This also has a niche, so I hope these actually sell. I hope we like them, but I'm really genuinely afraid that, like, in a few years they're going to pull back out of the US market again because no one buys fun cars. But it's totally usable. It's got decent storage space, and even the back seat's fine. In fact, yesterday I had some friends over and we decided to take it to the store. So let me end this video with a fun little trip to the store, proving that this thing is useful. 3 guys fitting into one little Fiat 500e. This should be fun little grocery shopping. We're gonna make food tonight, so Italian food, I'm thinking?
Yeah, so it's appropriate, I would say.
When in Rome, or when in Colorado. Okay. How are you doing?
It's fine, actually. It's not too...
So, as long as there's one passenger. So it's kind of a 3-adult vehicle, or 2 adults and 2 kids. That's my theory. Okay, off on our adventure. Okay, so we're going only 7 miles round trip. But for the 3 of us for this car, that might be asking a lot for this car. We'll find out. But time to go grocery shopping, get some Italian food. Oh yeah, by the way, if you put it in drive, you kind of have to hit the accelerator hard or manually put off the electronic parking brake. Either way works. But here we go. We've already used 1%. Okay, so it's very foggy, but I think we can see. Here we go. A little bit of traction control slipping in there, so you can turn traction control off, but it doesn't go fully off. So Andreas, can you give a little POV tour of your situation?
Yes, of course. So my situation is...
What are your amenities?
Very comfortable. I got free drinks here, chips over there. No, just kidding. So this is how I'm like crammed in here.
No cup holders, I'm guessing?
No cup holders, no. But yeah, it's pretty, you know, fun to have here. Very comfortable. I wouldn't go on a cross-country road trip in this thing, but you know, it is.
The grocery store.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's bearable. Yeah, how's that up front there? Justin, your knees are on
the dash.
On the dash.
They are. You can't really access the glove box, but it's nice that it's there.
Yeah,
the bumpy road with 3 guys in the car.
I was like taking off early on the way here.
We almost got injured. Okay, ingress is one thing, but egress is another. Andreas, let's see if you can figure out how to get out of this vehicle.
So,
you want to try this side?
Yeah. I might be therapy after this. Physical therapy.
Physical therapy.
Okay, beers.
You're so much taller than this car. So go shopping.
King Superes.
All right, brought this up so the boys don't have to drive so far. And it is amazing how this thing doesn't get Cybertruck looks, but it does get looks. People are like, wow, that thing's adorable. But brought it right out front of King Supers. And there's the groceries. So, how much can this thing fit? There we are. You'll have to excuse my backpack, but look at how much room there is. We can have our groceries and...
We got a weight balance though.
Okay. Look at that spacious trunk right there. Of course, manual closing, because that's how cars are done nowadays. Okay, let's see. Oh, there's one cup holder. That's cool. Andreas just couldn't see it because
What is cup holder?
there's one cup holder. Your legs were just covering it.
Dun dun.
Every time any other Tesla driver gets in the car. Egress. Okay, so we used 10% of the battery to go 7 miles. Not great. But we also didn't drive super conservatively. We didn't put it in Sherpa mode. So
Better than my 3 though, with the degradation. You know?
still better than his Model 3. You heard it here first, folks. So Justin, how's our Italian food coming along?
You know, we got everything in the pan. We've got the carrots, the celery, the onion. Did you add garlic by chance?
Oh, I think we forgot the garlic.
Hello, this is Olive Garden. Yeah, hey, it's Andreas. Emergency order. How fast can you deliver?